everybody, this is Tom again with Truax Outdoor Sports, and today, as I've talked about before, I want to do a how-to cast a baitcaster for beginners. Not just how to cast a baitcaster for beginners, however, but like almost a foolproof way. I say almost because with baitcasters it's never foolproof, especially when you're learning. But a couple advantages of a baitcaster before we get into this. Why in the world would you want to use a baitcaster? I know a lot of people go out and get them, and usually they have them for a couple weeks, and then they sell them to get a different pole to go back to open face because they can't figure this out. And I get that because it is kind of difficult. So a couple of reasons is, first, your accuracy with these is incredible. You have such more significant accuracy. You can hit a cup at like 20 yards just every time. I mean, it's really a lot of good distance control and everything. And then secondly, when you're fighting the fish, it just feels so much better because you put so much weight on your forearm. When you get that hook set, you can kind of lift up, and that weight is on your forearm, which is actually really cool, and doesn't hurt your wrist the way an open face reel does when you're horsing in a big fish. And so anyways, I want to give you guys a foolproof way of how to cast one of these relatively. You're still going to have some backlashes, but this will avoid a lot of the frustration because you'll know what to do. I was going to do a how to set these up, but there is so much awesome YouTube content on how to set up a baitcaster. I didn't think we needed to do that. That being said, what you can do is you can use this technique of how to cast these baitcasters, and I think that it's really going to help you. Hopefully you can hear me with all this wind. I don't think it's too bad of a deal though. So anywho, the first thing that you need to know is you need to know about how to set up your baitcaster. It's got magnetic braking on this side, so I'm going to come a little closer here. It's got magnetic braking on this side, as you guys can see, and it's got a tensioner right here, as you can see, okay? And so with magnetic braking, I usually like to leave it about in the middle, 5 or 6, but with the tensioner, what you're going to do is you're actually going to tighten that all the way up to start as a beginner. Not every single time are you going to do this. So you're going to tighten that tensioner all the way up. Go ahead. So you're going to have the tensioner all the way tight. And what you're going to do now is you're actually going to click your button, okay? See how the bait over there, I hope you can see that, the bait over there cannot drop on its own weight. And so now when your tensioner is totally tightened, you're actually going to release your tensioner ever so slowly, and basically you just want to get it so that the bait can move on its own, okay? So you want it just barely so it can move on its own weight like that. That's perfect, okay? So this is how you set it up to learn how to cast it. You'll be decreasing the tensioner to the point, once you understand how to cast it, you'll be decreasing the tensioner to where you're comfortable with it. And then your magnetic braking, everybody's different. You hear these macho guys that are like, oh, I never use any of the magnetic braking. Whatever, that just means that it's comfortable for them not to use magnetic braking. It doesn't mean that they're better at casting with it. The magnetic braking helps with the way that your thumb controls the spool. So really that's all it's for. You're going to set it where you're comfortable with. Like I said, I like to start with in the middle, like a 5 or 6 depending on your reel. And then like I said, with the tensioner though, just to start as a beginner, tighten it all the way up, and you want this bait to just be able to go down slowly on its own weight, okay? And I'm using about, I think, a 1/4 ounce. You can use a 1/2 ounce. At least have some weight on there, because if you don't, it's going to be very difficult. Baitcasters are not, it took me 3 years to figure out how to cast a baitcaster with a light, no weighted bait, and it's still difficult. So you're going to want a little weight on there, a 1/4 ounce or a 1/2 ounce, and do what I said with the tensioner. All right, so at this point we're ready to cast, okay? And your first cast, maybe you might want to play around with it even, and just kind of like just drop it like this, watch it go out, see how it feels as it goes out. And another thing that you can do is you can kind of hold your bait, and you can just kind of flick it out and let go. And see, the way I've got the tensioner, it's almost impossible to backlash this, so you can really get the feel for your baitcaster. So first, there are 2 main casts that you're going to learn. You're going to learn a sidearm, which is the first one you should learn. Do not try the overhead until you get your sidearm done. Now, when you do a sidearm, people do this differently, but I believe this is the foolproof best way to do it. When you do your sidearm, what you want to do is you want to cast with the reel parallel to the ground. You want the reel facing up. Every time you do your sidearm, you never turn your reel facing a different direction. I don't know why that matters, but it does, and I'm telling you, keep your reel parallel to the ground, facing up, so that way when you do your sidearm, you're not going to get backlash, okay? Like I said, I don't understand why that works, but it does. And so here it is. You're going to click your button, you keep your thumb on the spool, but keep in mind, the way the tensioner set up, it's almost impossible to mess this up, but you will. And then you just kind of fling it, all right? And keep your thumb, the goal of this exercise is to try to keep your thumb on the spool to get used to having your thumb on the spool. Okay, so I'm gonna reel that back and got relatively decent hit cast here, and I'm just gonna show you that again. So where it's at, you just, and you flick it. And really, I could even fish like this and leave the reel like this because I'm getting decent distance even with this kind of nerve by the tensioner being secured or tightened down. All right, so that's the sidearm cast we're going to try. I've got some ideas, so this is kind of difficult, but that's the sidearm cast, okay? All right, so now once you get the sidearm cast, once you feel comfortable, keep in mind you can kind of play with this tensioner and decrease it a little bit, cast, see if you can do something with it. The more you decrease the tensioner, the faster that spool will go, okay? And the reason why backlash happened is because that spool will spin faster than your bait goes out. And if that happens, it spools over itself. One thing to note, guys, if you do get a bad backlash, don't freak out. They're actually relatively easy to take out of these bait casters when you know what you're doing. First of all, understand that your line is a straight line. It's always a straight line. And so what I do is I just pull it, all the line up, and eventually as you pull the line up, all of it up, and you try to make sure things are lifted, then you just pull it straight, and it usually pulls right out, no matter how big the backlash is. Okay, so we got our sidearm down. Remember, keeping it parallel to the ground when you cast, right? And that's always the sidearm. That's how you do the sidearm, okay? Now, the overhand cast. This is if you want to get more distance, or say the quarters are tight and you need to do this. Okay, so one thing, very different with the overhand cast, is you're actually going to turn your reel, so that way it's facing left, okay? You're going to turn your reel so it's facing left, so the open side is facing left hand, or if you're right-handed, the open side will be facing your right hand, but if you're casting with your right hand, which is what I do, you're going to turn it to the left, okay? And you're going to cast it like this, okay? So you're going to have it facing to your left, and that's how you want to do it. If you do it like this with it facing you and you try to cast it like that, once again, the same as the sidearm, keeping it like this. I don't know why, but for some reason, if you cast with it overhead like this, it's going to have a bigger tendency to backlash, just like with the sidearm. And so you're gonna turn your reel like this, and you're going to flick it. Keep your thumb on this, okay? You keep your thumb on it. You got to make sure it's gonna take a while to get that thumb feel. So basically what this is for is getting that thumb feel so you get used to having your thumb there to kind of control the spool feed. And so once again, that cast is you just turn it sideways here for overhand and flick out, all right? Another thing to note, and here's another part where you're gonna get frustrated if you don't know this. You have to stop the spool as soon as the bait hits. If you don't stop the spool, it's going to overspin and you're going to get a rat's nest and be really frustrated. So you've got to be thinking, okay, I'm guiding it with my thumb, and then when the bait hits the water or the ground in this case, you have to stop the spool with your thumb. Otherwise, guess what? The spool will keep on going. Notice though that these casts, super easy because all I'm doing is I just have to barely flick it. I mean, I just flick it and I get great distance. I mean, I think I got, 30 yards there just with a little flick. Bait casters are superior, in my opinion, to open face in most applications. Lighter baits, not so much, but in most applications, bait casts are superior. And that's the thing, you got your sidearm, then overhead, once again, turning your reel. So sidearm, keeping it parallel to the ground, overhand, turning your wheel that way, and casting like this, right? So overhand, and there it is. And notice, you can even hear, I don't know if you guys can hear it there, but you can hear the psst of the line. And so practice this, and I would advise don't go fishing with this until you've practiced it for at least a week or two, to the point to where you're actually confident in using your reel. Because it is difficult, it is frustrating, and nothing will make you want to give up more than being at the lake and you make that cast, it looks really fishy, it's beautiful, you see some bass swimming around, and you cast your bait caster and woof, and you're so frustrated, right? So practice. This is a skilled art, basically. This isn't like an open face, you just click it open and cast. This isn't like an old Zebco reel where you just press the button and hold it and let go. This is something that is a skill that you have to learn, that you have to master. So take a week or two and actually practice it in your backyard so that you're ready. And if you do that, it's just going to become second nature. I mean, it's just super easy. You won't get those backlashes that everybody gets frustrated about. And if you do it this way, guaranteed, you'll be able to learn it without too much frustration. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to decrease the tensioner to where I'm comfortable with it, where I like it, which I actually like having some tension, and I've been doing this for years. And so we're there. Let's see if I get a backlasher now that I've been playing with it. Nope. There's a little bit. I got probably about 10, 15 more yards because I decreased it to where I like it, and we're just fine. Once in a while, you're going to forget to leave your thumb on the tensioner, or not the tensioner, your thumb on the spool. And when you do that, guess what's going to happen? It's going to backlash. So just be prepared for that. Know that that's possible, but keep in mind, the more you practice, the more you're going to understand. And I hope this tutorial really helps with really learning how to be a baitcast fisherman. So with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's instructional. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I will answer them.